For more than 30 years, America believed it had seen the whole of Marie Osmond. They saw a girl who was always smiling on family television, her sweet voice filling living rooms night after night, a clean-cut symbol of the 1970s that parents felt safe letting their children adore. Marie Osmond was not just a star, she was an image of safety, of the belief that there were still people Hollywood had not distorted. But that was only one life. The rest of Marie Osmond's life unfolded when the cameras were off. There was no applause, no spotlight, and no permission to be weak. It was the life of a child turned into a product before she could understand who she was, of a young woman controlled down to every pound on her body, of a woman who learned to smile while collapsing inside. For years, Marie lived in two parallel worlds, one for the public and one where every wound had to be hidden in order to survive. No one knew that behind the smile of America's sweetheart were sleepless nights of depression, stretches when she could not get out of bed, thoughts that the world might be better off without her. No one knew that the woman who always appeared composed on stage had once battled her own body and the shame planted in her mind from a very early age. And no one knew that the greatest tragedy of her life, the death of her son, arrived in a moment so cruel, it did not even grant her a chance to say goodbye. 30 years of silence. 30 years of playing the perfect role. 30 years of living two lives without anyone noticing the cracks. Until now. Because when Marie Osmond finally began to speak about a childhood that was taken from her, about the depression she hid like a crime, about the phone call she never had time to answer before stepping on stage, the portrait of the wholesome star revealed its truth. Marie was not a woman who never fell. She was a woman who fell in silence, then stood back up without telling the world why. This is the story of the life Marie Osmond concealed for 3 decades. Not because she wanted to deceive anyone, but because if the truth had surfaced too soon, she might not have survived to tell it today. Marie Osmond did not learn how to endure only in adulthood. That lesson began almost at the same moment as her first breath. From an age too young to remember who she was, Marie did not belong to childhood in the ordinary sense. At 3 years old, while other children were still learning how to hold a spoon, getting dirty in the sand, and falling asleep in their parents' arms, little Marie was already standing under studio lights, gripping a microphone, introduced to millions of television viewers as the adorable youngest member of the Osmond family. No one asked her a question. No one asked whether Marie wanted to be there. That identity was fastened onto her like a pre-tailored garment, too tight, yet never allowed to be taken off. Marie Osmond was born on October 13, 1959. She was the only daughter among 9 siblings, a position that was both special and isolating. In the devout Mormon Osmond household, discipline was not a choice but a foundation. Music was not merely a talent, it was a duty, the way the family survived and earned recognition. Every child had to learn an instrument, train their voice, practice choreography. Each one was both a performer and a teacher to their siblings. Mistakes were not treated as learning. They were a source of family shame. Marie did not simply grow up in a large family. She grew up inside a musical system. When her brothers became the Osmonds and idol mania swept across America, Marie was no longer allowed to be a child living carefree. She became an extension of a profitable brand. Performance schedules replaced playtime. Recording studios replaced classrooms. Consecutive flights replaced quiet evenings. When Marie asked for permission to go out and play, a request so simple it should not have required thought, her mother's answer was always the same. No, not because it was dangerous, not because she was unloved, but because you still have work to do. Marie understood very early on that her own needs came after everything else. That exhaustion was never given a name. It was disguised behind a smile. Marie was trained to become a good child, obedient, easy to manage, always ready. She learned how to stand in the right place, say the right words, smile at the right moment. No one noticed that the cost of that perfection was the feeling that she was slowly disappearing. Years later, when she finally had the courage to look back, Marie admitted that there were periods when she did not feel like a human being, but more like an object that was wiped clean, placed correctly, and taken out on display whenever needed. But early labor was not the deepest wound of her childhood. In her memoir, Behind the Smile, Marie spoke for the first time about a truth she had buried for decades. She was sexually abused as a child, not in situations that were obviously dangerous, not by strangers, but by people whom the family trusted enough to leave her alone with. Each time it happened, Marie was threatened into silence, and she did exactly what a child is taught to do. She obeyed. Marie did not give details. She never wanted that story to become public curiosity. What she emphasized was not the act, but the aftermath, the vague sense of shame, the fear she could not name, and the confusion in the way she viewed her own body. There were moments when she was only 8 or 9 years old when Marie wondered whether she was somehow different, not because she understood anything about sexual orientation, but because what had happened stripped away her sense of safety within herself. While America saw a polite, well-behaved little girl, always smiling and grateful for her life, Marie was growing up inside a bitter contradiction, performing happiness while not yet truly feeling it in real life. She learned to detach from her emotions, to treat her body as a tool, and to regard silence as the condition for being loved. Those wounds did not disappear as Marie grew older. They only changed shape. And before childhood had time to close, the stage lights pulled Marie straight into the next chapter of her life, where fame was no longer just psychological pressure, but began to attack her body image, her sense of self-worth, and planted the seeds of a second life that for 30 years, no one, not even her most devoted audience, ever truly saw. Marie Osmond entered her teenage years without ever having the chance to live like an ordinary teenager. And when love knocked on her door for the first time, it did not arrive as a refuge, but as another test, no less unforgiving than the stage lights. On the surface, Marie was America's dream. At just 15, she stood at the center of the Donny Marie Show, a prime-time program that turned her into a teen idol, the face of innocence, obedience, and safety in a Hollywood that was growing increasingly rebellious. But behind the canned laughter and meticulously calibrated lighting, Marie began to face a different battle, the fight to be seen as a woman, not an image. Marie's first love was quiet, without scandal or spectacle. It arrived softly, shaped by a sense of understanding between young people pulled too early into the machinery of fame. She was drawn to Michael McDonald, the warm, resonant voice of the Doobie Brothers, a man who was introspective and reserved, the opposite of the noisy world Marie inhabited. With him, she found the feeling of being heard, even though the relationship never had the chance to fully bloom. It faded like an unfinished melody, beautiful, but not strong enough to withstand reality. Then Andy Gibb appeared, sweet, charismatic, and fragile. Marie once called him the man with the kindest heart she had ever known. But Andy carried his own shadows, addiction, instability, and the pressure of a star in free fall. Marie loved him with all her gentleness, but that love could not save someone who was losing himself. When Andy was gone, Marie did not just lose a relationship. She lost another piece of her belief that love could heal everything. David Cassidy came afterward, another flawless symbol of the television idol generation. They looked perfect together, chased by the public, yet inside were two exhausted people pulled in different directions. Marie later admitted that she always felt as though she were trying to hold on to something that never stood still. Those relationships did not end in scandal. They ended in exhaustion, something far more dangerous. Meanwhile, the pressure on the set of the Donny and Marie Show tightened around Marie in a more concrete and brutal way. No longer vague demands for perfection. Now there were numbers, weight targets, ultimatums. One day, an executive pulled her into a parking lot, called her embarrassing, a disgrace to the family, and warned her that if she did not lose weight, hundreds of people behind the scenes could lose their jobs, all because of her. At that time, Marie weighed less than 47 kilograms, but she still obeyed. Not because she believed she was overweight, but because she had been taught that her responsibility was to please everyone. Marie began to starve herself. No breakfast, no dinner. 4 days a week she lived on a mixture of water, lemon, cayenne pepper, and maple syrup. A cleansing diet, praised by Hollywood. But in reality, a direct path to destruction. Her weight dropped to 44 kilograms, then 43, then even lower. Even when her body became so weak that she could no longer complete dance routines, Marie still believed she was not thin enough. That obsession did not come from vanity. It came from the fear of being replaced, of being discarded, of being abandoned. Standing beside beauty icons like Farrah Fawcett, Jaclyn Smith, and Cheryl Ladd, Marie felt like an imposter on her own stage. She smiled, bowed, sang the right notes, but inside was a young girl slowly losing connection with her body and her emotions. Only later did Marie become clear-eyed enough to recognize that her eating disorder was not a desire to be more beautiful. It was a desperate attempt to reclaim control in a life where everything had always been decided for her. When the Donny and Marie Show came to an end, audiences believed Marie would finally be freed. But what had formed inside her during those years did not disappear with the lights. It followed her into marriage, into motherhood, and into the years when the world believed she was fine. In truth, she was not. Because love does not heal wounds created by silence. And for Marie Osmond, everything she had never been allowed to say throughout her youth was about to return, no longer in the form of pressure, but as an inner collapse she could no longer hide. At that point, it was impossible to deny that Marie Osmond was standing on one of the rare peaks that very few teen stars ever reach, and even fewer manage to survive. The Donny and Marie Show was not merely a successful entertainment program, it was a cultural phenomenon of 1970s America. Primetime slots, soaring ratings, and a steady stream of A-list guests, from film superstars and top recording artists to beauty icons who defined an entire era. In an industry notoriously harsh toward young female performers, Marie became the embodiment of America's sweetheart. Pure, obedient, likable, and safe enough to enter every American household. That success did not come solely from the appeal of the Osmond family, but from Marie herself. She was the only one among them who could stand independently before the public without dissolving into the collective shadow. Her solo hits proved she was more than Donny's little sister, while the television show elevated her into one of the most recognizable young female idols in America. Few remember that at 16, Marie was already doing work typically reserved for seasoned professionals, hosting live television, singing, dancing, performing comedy, improvising with guests, week after week, without missing a beat. More importantly, Marie did not evaporate after the teen idol craze, a fate most of her contemporaries could not escape. More than half a century later, she remains present in the entertainment industry, from television and stage to long-running Las Vegas residencies with Donny that lasted 11 years. While many icons of the 1970s faded into nostalgia, Marie Osmond became the exception, someone who not only survived Hollywood's cycles of attrition, but retained the affection of multiple generations of audiences. And yet, here, the greatest paradox of Marie's life revealed itself. The peak of her career did not bring a sense of safety. It only forced her to perform the role of being fine more convincingly. The more successful her career became, the more perfect her image, the less space there was for weakness. And from that point on, Marie's second life, the one without lights, without applause, without permission to collapse, began to take root, quietly, deeply, and more dangerously than ever before. Marriage did not bring Marie Osmond the peace she had waited for throughout her youth. It only temporarily concealed the pain until it broke through in ways she could no longer control. When Marie married Steve Craig in 1982, she was just 22 years old. On paper, it looked like an ideal beginning. A man outside the entertainment industry, a small family, a chance to step away from the machinery she had lived inside since before she could read. Marie believed that if she became an ordinary wife, a proper mother, everything that had once wounded her would finally quiet down. But the past does not leave simply because we change roles. The first marriage ended after only 3 years, leaving Marie with a familiar sense of failure. She had tried her best, and still, it was not enough. She entered her second marriage to Brian Blosil in 1986, this time more determined, more enduring, and willing to sacrifice more. Together, they had 8 children, a large, noisy family that looked like the perfect model of stability. But behind the family photographs was a woman pushing herself to exhaustion. Motherhood did not heal Marie. It tore open what she had spent years hiding. After giving birth, Marie began to fall into a state that, at the time, few dared to name: postpartum depression. Not a passing sadness, but a quiet collapse of the will to live. She could not get out of bed. Her body ached as if all strength had been drained from it. Terrifying thoughts arrived without warning, and more frightening still, they sounded reasonable. Marie later admitted that there were days when she drove for hours, not knowing where she was going, only knowing that she did not want to be at home, and did not want to exist. At times, she handed her newborn to a babysitter, placed a stack of blank checks in their hands, and disappeared, as if she herself did not believe she would return. When doctors finally diagnosed her with clinical depression, Marie did not feel relief. She felt shame, because from childhood, she had been taught that weakness was not allowed. In 2006, rumors spread that Marie had attempted suicide and been hospitalized. Tabloids exploited the story without mercy. The truth was later confirmed. A severe reaction to medication had caused her to lose consciousness, not an intentional act. But in the public eye, that distinction did not matter. Once again, Marie was seen as an image. This time, the image of collapse. She did not push back. She did not sue. She did not place blame. Marie chose a path that was rare at the time, telling the truth. She began to speak about depression, about the deceit of self-destructive thoughts, about how a woman can appear to have everything on paper, yet feel completely empty inside. When Marie spoke up, thousands of other women realized for the first time that they were not crazy, not broken, not alone. But even after surviving that period, Marie had not yet reached the deepest bottom of her life. In 2007, while competing on Dancing with the Stars, Marie collapsed on live television immediately after a performance. America panicked. She stood back up, smiled, joked, as if it were nothing more than a minor mishap. But that moment exposed a truth Marie had hidden for years. Her body had been carrying far more than her spirit could continue to hold. And then came 2010. There was no rehearsal for that, no stage light to soften the blow. Marie lost her son Michael at the age of 18, a fall from a high floor of an apartment building in Los Angeles, ending a long, silent battle with depression he had carried for far too long. No drugs, no alcohol. Just a pain he no longer had the strength to bear. Marie was preparing to step onto the stage when her phone rang. She did not answer in time. It was her son's final call. No mother ever truly recovers from that. Marie was no exception. But unlike her previous collapses, this time she no longer had the option of hiding. That grief did not allow any second life to continue. It tore away every layer of pretense, forcing Marie to face what she had avoided for 30 years. That silence was no longer protecting anyone. And from that moment on, Marie Osmond's life entered an entirely different chapter. Not a battle to be perfect, but a journey of learning how to survive, to speak honestly, and to love again with a heart that had been shattered. After Michael's death, Marie Osmond no longer lived on the momentum of a star. Every movement of her life slowed down, not because of age, but because each step now carried the memory of a child who could not stay. She withdrew from much of Hollywood's noise and chose to live in St. George, Utah, an arid, quiet place where sunsets sink into the desert so slowly that people have time to breathe. Marie's large home is not a symbol of wealth, but a place where she gathers what remains of her life. Every room holds family photographs, her children's drawings, keepsakes with no monetary value yet heavy with memory. This is where Marie allows herself to cry without apologizing to anyone. In her 60s, Marie no longer tries to prove anything. She focuses on small things, walking every morning, cycling with her grandchildren, cooking, caring for her body not for appearance, but because she still wants to live. "I'm not trying to be young again," she once said. "I just want to be well enough to be present." The wrinkles on her face are no longer something to hide. To Marie, they are a map of the places she has been and survived. And then, in a strange twist of fate, Steve Craig returned to her life. Nearly 3 decades after their first marriage ended, two people who once separated in immaturity met again after both had lived through loss, failure, and enough pain to leave no room for illusion. Their remarriage in 2011 came without a white gown, without public display. It unfolded quietly, exactly the way Marie wanted to live now. They chose a wedding date that coincided with the birthdays of her late mother and her son who was gone, not to reopen grief, but to say that those who had left were still there, within each rare moment of peace. This second marriage did not promise eternal happiness. It promised kindness, listening, and a place to return to. When Marie announced her decision not to leave her tens of millions of dollars to her children, the public was once again stunned. Many called it cold, but to Marie, it was the logical conclusion of a lifetime lived under the weight of fame. She had seen too many children grow up wealthy, yet empty. "I don't want my children to inherit money," she said plainly. "I want them to inherit the ability to stand on their own. Not punishment, but faith that true value does not come from what is handed down." Today, Marie Osmond still steps onto the stage, but no longer as the girl trained to please America. Each time she sings, her voice carries a different depth, slower, deeper, and unhidden. Music is no longer an obligation. It is how she speaks to those who are gone, to those who are hurting, and to herself. 30 years of living two lives ended not in collapse, but in honesty. Marie Osmond is no longer a symbol of flawless innocence. She is proof of something far more difficult, that a person can break many times and still choose to love, still choose to stay, and still choose to live, even while carrying pain for the rest of their life. But if Marie Osmond's story ended with survival, that would be only half the truth. The other half, quieter, yet far more enduring, lies in what she left behind for others after walking through her own hell. For decades, Marie was one of the very few stars willing to speak openly about what Hollywood has long tried to conceal: postpartum depression, eating disorders, childhood sexual abuse, and the pain of losing a child to suicide. She did not speak in accusation, nor did she turn tragedy into spectacle. Marie spoke as someone who had been there, who had hit bottom, and understood that silence can sometimes kill faster than pain itself. When Behind the Smile was published in 2001, America was not ready for such a confession. A clean-cut, devout icon, a representative of traditional family values, openly admitting that she had once not wanted to live, had run away from home in the grip of depression, had handed her newborn to someone else, and driven off in despair. The book was not written to shock. It was written like a doorway, opening for millions of women to realize, for the first time, that they were not crazy, not weak, and not alone. After Michael's death, Marie's role shifted even more clearly. She was no longer just telling her own story. She became a voice for those who no longer had one. On television programs and in community talks, Marie emphasized something that seems simple yet is often overlooked. Suicide is not the choice of weakness, but the outcome of pain that goes unheard. She spoke about school bullying, about adolescent depression, about how parents need to learn how to ask and learn how to listen, rather than only instruct. Marie's influence did not come from slogans or loud campaigns. It came from consistency, from not retracting her words when public opinion pushed back, from not softening her story to make it more palatable, from not pretending she was fine now. Marie has repeatedly said it plainly: pain never truly disappears. You only learn how to carry it without letting it destroy everything that remains. In an industry that glorifies youth and flawless appearance, Marie Osmond became something entirely different. A woman willing to age in public, willing to appear with a voice no longer as pure as it once was, but richer in experience, willing to place human value above image, willing to let her legacy be not money, but a way of living. Marie's greatest legacy is not found in hit records or television shows. It lives in the women who found the courage to ask for help after hearing her story, in the parents who began paying closer attention to their children, in the audiences who realized that a smile on screen never tells the whole truth. Marie Osmond did not change the world through glamour. She changed it through truth, slowly, painfully, but enduringly. And that is the rarest kind of impact a public figure can leave behind. At this stage of her life, Marie Osmond no longer lives by the frantic rhythm of touring schedules or milestones to be achieved. She lives by the rhythm of her own body, by the morning light in Utah, by days that can be quiet without feeling empty. St. George is not a place to run away to. It is where Marie consciously chooses to stay. Far from Los Angeles, far from parties where people only ask what project comes next, she has built a life around things that are tangible: health, family, and presence. Marie still exercises every day, not to maintain an image, but to preserve energy. She speaks openly about how, after years of struggling with eating disorders, caring for her body is now an act of self-respect, not punishment. In her spacious yet warm home, Marie spends much of her time with her grandchildren. Being called grandma means more to her than any other title. Walking, cycling, and cooking together are her way of making up for the years she could not be home because of performance schedules. Marie does not try to be a perfect grandmother. She simply tries to be there, long enough, attentive enough, and real enough. Music is still present, but it is no longer the center. Marie records when she wants to, performs when she feels ready. Her voice no longer needs to soar to prove technique. It is slower, deeper, and carries silences she once did not dare allow. Audiences still recognize Marie from the very first notes, not because of purity, but because of the familiar feeling of someone who has traveled very far and still remembers the way home. She still appears in the media, but selectively. She does not answer sensational questions. She does not avoid difficult subjects. When asked about Michael's death, Marie says no more than is necessary. She does not recount it to invite sympathy. She tells it to remind others that the greatest battles are often silent ones. When asked about her appearance, she does not argue. "I'm no longer trying to look like anyone else," she says. "I just need to be myself." Faith, once the rigid framework of her childhood, has now become a personal anchor, no longer a set of rules, but a source of comfort. Marie prays more often, but not to ask for anything. She prays to stay balanced, to accept days of weakness, to remember those who have left without becoming trapped in the past. Marie Osmond's present life is not loud, not tragic, nor painted as a fairy tale ending. It is a sequence of days built on clarity, on knowing when to stop, when to say no, when to stay home, and when to step onto the stage, not out of obligation, but because there is still something she wants to share. And if there is one word to name the rest of Marie Osmond's life, it is not happiness. It is peace. Not the peace of someone who has never been hurt, but the peace of someone who has endured too much loss to still be afraid of it. Marie does not close her story with victory. She closes it with acceptance. That some wounds never fully heal, that some names will always be whispered in the heart, and that continuing to live does not mean forgetting. 30 years of living two lives have left visible marks on Marie Osmond. One public life, radiant, disciplined, perfect to the point of suffocation, and one private life, where she learned to survive with depression, with a body that was controlled, with buried memories, and finally with the greatest pain a mother can endure. What sets Marie apart is not how she overcame everything, but that she never denied any of it. Marie Osmond no longer tries to be a symbol of innocence or moral perfection. She chooses to be a whole human being, with light and shadow, with days of strength and days of fragility. In a world that constantly demands women to smile, to be fine, to be grateful, Marie dared to say the opposite, that some days, simply existing is enough. Her legacy does not lie in record sales or in the television shows that shaped an entire generation's childhood. It lies in the courage to live truthfully, even when that truth is not beautiful, not easy to hear, and not compatible with the image the public once loved. Marie gave others something rare, the feeling of being seen, understood, and allowed to be imperfect. In the end, Marie Osmond no longer needs anyone to discover her double life. She has stepped out of it herself, without noise, without declarations, simply by slowing down, loving more deeply, and being fully present in each remaining day. And perhaps that is the greatest truth revealed. Not that Marie Osmond lived two lives for 30 years, but that she learned how to merge them into a single human being, honest, wounded, and still here. There is one final thing Marie Osmond's story leaves behind, not as a lesson, nor as a moral message, but as a quiet question for anyone who is listening. For years, we believed we knew Marie Osmond. We believed that her smile was entirely real. We believed that people who appeared regularly on television, sang pure melodies, and grew up in front of the public eye must somehow be shielded from life's deepest fractures. But over the past 30 years, the truth moved in another direction. Some people shine more brightly on the outside precisely because they have learned to hide more carefully what is breaking within. Marie Osmond does not want to be remembered as a victim, nor does she need to be celebrated as a heroic symbol. What she has done, and continues to do, is far simpler, living truthfully with her own story so that others no longer have to live in silence, so that a mother struggling with postpartum depression knows she is not alone, so that a wounded child understands the fault was never theirs, so that a family grieving a loss can slow their breathing and keep moving forward. You may not have grown up with Donny and Marie. You may never have heard Paper Roses, but chances are you have carried a pain you did not know how to share with anyone. And if that is true, then Marie Osmond's story is no longer just the story of a star. It reaches something deeply human in each of us. If Marie's journey made you pause for a moment, if it reminded you of a loss, a moment of getting back up, or someone you never had the chance to tell, "I love you," leave your thoughts in the comments. They do not need to be eloquent. They do not need to be complete. They only need to be real. And if you want to continue listening to stories like this, lives that seemed radiant but hid far more than we ever knew, please like and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes what we need most is not an answer, but the knowledge that someone has walked through the darkness and still chose to stay.